President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the Jordanian King Abdullah II discussed the military escalation in Gaza and the bilateral ties during the summit talks in Cairo. The details follow.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi held summit talks with Jordanian King Abdullah II in Cairo on Thursday. The two leaders discussed the ongoing Israeli aggression and military escalation in Gaza, as well as means of boosting bilateral relations in various domains with the aim of realizing the two peoples' interests. During their meeting, the two leaders affirmed the rejection of targeting Palestinian civilians or forcibly displacing them from their lands to Egypt or Jordan. President Sisi and the Jordanian monarch warned of the danger of displacement calls on regional security. They further warned of the deterioration in humanitarian and security situation in the Gaza Strip, as well as the killing and injury of thousands of innocent Palestinian civilians. President Sisi and King Abdullah II stressed on the need for continued humanitarian access in a sustainable manner. The two heads of state affirmed that achieving real, just and comprehensive peace and stability depends on giving Palestinians their legitimate rights for an independent state with Jerusalem as its capital in accordance with the international resolutions and legitimacy with the aim of attaining peace and security for the whole region. In this respect, they reviewed the two countries' continuous efforts to push forward negotiations and calm the escalation in the situation.
President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received Lieutenant General Michael Corella, the commander of the U.S. Central Command. The two sides stressed their keenness to strengthen the partnership between Egypt and the U.S., as well as intensifying existing cooperation and coordination in various fields. They also reviewed a number of issues of common interest, especially the developments in the situation in the Gaza Strip. President al-Sisi reviewed the efforts to reduce the escalation, stressing the significance of concerted efforts of the international community to push towards containing the crisis and shifting to the approach of reviving the peace path based on the solution of the two states. Warning of the danger of the security consequences of this conflict on the entire region, President al-Sisi stressed the significance of delivering the humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip as a top priority. The Parliament held an emergency session during which it condemned in the strongest terms the Israeli aggression on Gaza. Members of Parliament reiterated that there was no complacency in giving up 1 inch of the land of Sinai. They also completely rejected a Palestinian displacement. The Parliament members declared that they unanimously delegate President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to take all the necessary and the appropriate measures to protect the national security and support the Palestinian people. Mustaqbal Watan Party held a conference on supporting Palestine where several parties and the political bodies participated. Around 1,500 political figures, cadres and party members attended the conference. Representatives of the parties and the political entities backing the Egyptian stance towards the Palestinian cause delivered several speeches. Member of Parliament Ahmed Abdel Gawad, the deputy head of the Mustaqbal Watan Party, delivered the final speech of the conference, during which he recited the recommendations which were agreed upon by the attendees. The recommendations included supporting President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's honorable and historic stance, which rejects the elimination of the Palestinian cause and the displacement of the Palestinians. The recommendations also included supporting diplomatic efforts led by Egypt in order to stop the Palestinian bloodshed, deliver humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip, and stop the escalation in preparation for the resumption of the peace process. Chinese President Xi Jinping told the visiting Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli that Beijing hoped to work with Egypt to bring more stability to the Middle East. The Chinese leader repeated the Chinese support for a two-state solution. He asserted that China and Egypt are good friends who share the same goals and trust each other, and good partners who work for development and common prosperity. Xi further expressed his support to the Egyptian efforts to open the humanitarian corridors to allow relief aid to the Palestinians. Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry held talks with the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in Cairo to review the deteriorating humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip. During a joint press conference following the talks, Minister Shoukry said that the two sides had agreed on the importance of reaching a ceasefire in Gaza. They also stressed the significance of establishing a Palestinian state with Jerusalem as its capital. The top diplomat said that the upcoming summit in Cairo on Saturday, called for by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, would focus on reaching a consensus with the international and the humanitarian principles to de-escalate the violence in Gaza, reach a ceasefire, and allow the humanitarian aid to flow into the Gaza Strip. For his part, Guterres deplored the targeting of civilians in Gaza and reiterated that they should be protected. In this respect, he affirmed that attacking hospitals contradicts with the international law and legitimacy. The UN chief also reiterated that the humanitarian aid should be allowed into Gaza. Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry met with the UK Secretary of State for Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Affairs, James Cleverly, in Cairo. Shoukry stressed the necessity of pushing coordinated international efforts to urge conflicting parties to de-escalate the violence in Gaza. The top diplomat underscored the importance of not targeting civilians, abiding by the rules of the international and the humanitarian law, in addition to evading the extension of the cycle of violence and fighting into other areas in the region to protect regional and international peace and security. The World Health Organization said that 5 trucks of medical supplies were ready at the border between Gaza and Egypt. The World Health Organization welcomed the Israeli announcement that it would not block the entry of aid into the Palestinian territory. The details. Palestinians in war-torn Gaza on Thursday eagerly awaited the arrival of the 8 trucks promised in a deal struck by the American President Joe Biden as Israel's military kept up the brutal bombardment of targets in the Hamas-run enclave. Egypt's Al Qahira News said that the Rafah border crossing, the only one in and out of besieged Gaza not controlled by Israel, would open on Friday. More than 100 trucks carrying aid had been queuing for days on the Egyptian side of the border, with the United Nations and the others calling for the urgent help for the besieged civilians. On a visit to Cairo, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that there needed to be rapid, unimpeded humanitarian access after dire warnings about the impact of the Israeli blockade. The Emergencies Director of the World Health Organization, Michael Ryan, said that the aid needed to get in every day, calling an initial 20 trucks. The deal struck by Biden with Israel and Egypt a drop in the ocean of need right now. Gaza has been hit by a relentless barrage of Israeli fire in retaliation for the Hamas attack on October the 7th, which Israel said killed at least 1,400 people. The Israeli occupation brutal bombing since has killed at least 3,785 Palestinians, most of them civilians, according to the health ministry. Entire city blocks have been leveled, displacing more than 1 million of the 2.4 million population. There are fears of worse to come if Israel launches an anticipated ground invasion to destroy Hamas and rescue the Israeli and the foreign hostages, whose known number Israel on Thursday revised up to 203. Egypt and China signed the debt swapping memorandum of understanding MOU for the developmental projects. The MOU was signed by Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli, who is on an official visit to Beijing, where he met with the Chinese President Xi Jinping. Madbouli participated in the opening session of the 3rd Belt and Road Forum for the International Cooperation in Beijing on behalf of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Addressing the event, The Prime Minister said that Egypt and China share historic ties that date back to ancient ages through the Silk Road that used to link Asia to Africa. Egypt's stock market indices fluctuated, being affected by the selling operations by the Arab and the foreign investors. The main EGX 30 index lost 2.26%. The small and medium EGX 70 index soared 0.01%. The more expanded EGX 100 index lost 1.1%. The overall transactions and dealings within the session reached £7 billion.